Hello and welcome to the Yellow Submarine. In this video we'll be looking at the top 10 secret Beatles collaborations. Before we open the cupboard of the Beatles, kindly subscribe to this channel and put on the post notifications so that we can alert you when we have something like this for you. Done? Let's go. Top 10 secret collaborations. The word secret isn't a word you throw around carelessly, especially in a situation like this. Everyone knows the Beatles. The Beatles are known as the most influential band of all time and the best-selling band of all time. So it will look somehow if these secrets show that the Beatles somehow played their fans in the past. Know that the Beatles comprise 4 people, namely John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison and Ringo Starr. Another thing you should know is that John Lennon and Paul McCartney had something together that brought a lot of success to the band. These people met as boys when John Lennon's group went to perform at a church. Since then, they had been learning from each other and they're known as the best known and most successful music collaboration ever by records sold. Despite this, the Beatles did engage in some, should I call, extracurricular dealings outside their positions as a Beatle. In the next 5 to 7 minutes, we'll be looking at secret collaborations that this band did, and more than half of their fans don't know about. The video will shed more light on events like when McCartney went off the grid and acted as Apollo C. Vermouth to produce the Bonzo Dog Doodah band's most successful single, or when George Harrison worked under these pseudonyms, Harry Georgeson, son of Harry, and George H., and many more secrets. Let's get underway. Coming in at number 10, Paul McCartney as Bernard Webb in 1966. Peter Asher and Gordon Waller were two names that rang a bell in the 1960s. These two British men were known as Peter and Gordon and they formed a pop group. They stepped on the international stage in 1964 when their first single, A World Without Love, made over 1 million sales. At this time, Paul McCartney of the Beatles was in a long-term relationship with Peter Asher's sister Jane. Using this opportunity, McCartney decided to try out writing a song without the influence of the other Beatles. McCartney then wrote a song for Peter and Gordon titled Woman. So that people won't know about his involvement, McCartney wrote the song under the pseudonym Bernard Webb and it was issued as Columbia DB7834. The song however peaked at number 28 on the British charts. It performed better in the United States as it peaked at number 14 on the country's charts. People later knew about McCartney's involvement and Gordon Waller later came out and introduced the song as a McCartney composition during an appearance on a TV program titled Hullabaloo. Woman wasn't the only track that McCartney wrote for Peter and Gordon. He also wrote A World Without Love, Nobody I Know, and I Don't Want to See You Again. You can search Bernard Webb on Google and discover the tricks this man was up to. And 9. George Harrison as Son of Harry in 1973. In 1973, David Thomas Mason, also known as Dave Mason, tried to create a hit solo track after ending a lengthy battle to free himself from Blue Thumb Records. David Mason is a singer, songwriter and guitarist. He was with Traffic, a rock band in 1971 and left the group in 1971. He signed a contract with Columbia and to boost his status, he decided to collaborate with a couple of popular ringers in Graham Nash and Stevie Wonder for his 1973 album It's Like You Never Left. Graham Nash and Stevie Wonder weren't the only people on Mason's list. George Harrison of the Beatles was also on the list. It was discovered that the guitar on track 3 of It's Like You Never Left, titled If You Got Love, was done by Dave and Harrison. There was also an American bassist, Carl Radle, who appeared with Mason on All Things Must Pass Era, Apple Jams, and longtime Harrison collaborator Jim Keltner. Unlike Paul McCartney's undercover venture in 1966, George Harrison and other collaborators were able to move Mason's album to number 25, one of his best ever entries on the Billboard album chart. At number 8, we have Ringo Starr as Richie in 1970. This happened when Eric Clapton arranged these sessions to pair London Howlin' Wolf with the Rolling Stones rhythm section. It was one of the first cross-generational all-star blues projects. Eric Clapton enlisted the help of Charlie Watts, but something came up and he couldn't make it. The best substitution they had at the time was Ringo Starr. Ringo Starr was the drummer in the track I Ain't Superstitious, which was written by Willie Dixon. Charlie wasn't the only person that didn't make it to the recording session, and Ringo Starr wasn't the only Beatles, or should I say Beatles-related personnel, down there that day. Wait, did that mean that Ringo Starr wasn't the only Beatles there? Who could be there as well? The great John Lennon? The great Paul McCartney? You're wrong on both counts. It was Klaus Voormann. Bill Wyman too couldn't make it to the recording session, so Klaus Voormann came in and replaced him as a bassist. Klaus Voormann was the man behind the legendary cover for the Beatles' Revolver album in 1966. That wasn't the only gig Ringo Starr worked on as Richie. Our Man Richie also appeared on 4 additional bonus tracks for a 2003 deluxe edition of the disc, including a beefy version of Going Down Slow. At number 7, we have Paul McCartney as Percy Thrillington in 1971. Paul McCartney makes the list again. It all happened with an album titled Thrillington. It was discovered that Paul McCartney produced the sessions, but he did not play or sing at all on the album. The piece of music is an interesting instrumental version of McCartney's album Ram. McCartney worked with Richard Anthony Hewson on this project, and it was Richard that did all the arrangements. He was asked by McCartney to work on the orchestration before Ram had yet been released. The recording sessions of the album were completed in 3 days. However, the album didn't get to see the light in 1971 due to Paul's efforts to create Wings, a British-American rock band. In 1976, McCartney decided to release the album but didn't want people to know about his involvement. He then created a legend in the person of a fictitious socialite, Percy Thrillington, and even took out ads in various UK music papers announcing Thrillington's so-called comings and goings to generate curiosity and interest. Crazy stuff, right? In early 1977, the album was released with the information that Paul McCartney was a friend of Percy Thrillington. In 1989, McCartney let the cat out of the bag to journalist Peter Palmier at a Los Angeles press conference on 27 November 1989. He said that it was a secret between him and his wife, Linda McCartney, but now the world knows about it. Percy Thrillington? Really? In 1990, McCartney confirmed John Lennon's assumption that he was Clint Harrigan, the liner notes writer for Thrillington and Paul McCartney and Wings' Wildlife album. 6. George Harrison as Harry Georgeson and Jai Raj Harrison. George Harrison makes it to the list again, but now not as the son of Harry. Billy Preston had a close relationship with the Beatles that some dubbed him as the 5th Beatles. But his relationship with George Harrison, who co-produced Preston's Apple Records debut, was on another level. George Harrison had worked with Billy Preston on various projects. In 1975, George Harrison performed on Preston's more synth-focused 1975 album, That's Life. He worked on this project as Harry Georgeson. He had done this before when he sat in on Billy Preston's 1971 album, I Wrote a Simple Song, and half-heartedly disguised himself as George H. and Harry Georgeson. Unlike George H., Harry Georgeson was quite popular and used by musicians. He appeared as Harry Georgeson while working with Ravi Shankar and Jack Bruce. While Harrison was still signed to Apple Records, he wanted to produce Splinter, who was the first group to be signed to Harrison's Dark Horse Records. He fictionally splintered himself into 3 producers: Harry Georgeson, Jai Raj Harrison, and P-Producer, George. Jason Bourne needs to learn from George Harrison. In 5. Paul McCartney as Paul Ramon in 1969. We have Paul McCartney again. What did he do this time? In 1969, Steve Miller was having a little difficulty in getting to the big stage, but heaven shone on him when he and the Beatles were at the Olympic Studios in 2 different rooms at the same time. An unfortunate incident happened in the room of the Beatles as the band had an intense argument with Alan Klein, their manager. George Harrison, John Lennon and Ringo Starr left the studio that very day, and it remained Paul McCartney there alone. McCartney decided to go for a walk and he entered the neighbouring studio. Lo and behold, he found Steve Miller alone as well. Steve Miller was busy working on his album Brave New World at the time. You know, music lives in McCartney, so he decided to join Miller and he decided to collaborate. He then took the alias Paul Ramon. That wasn't the first time he would be using it, as he had used it during the 1960 tour in Scotland with Johnny Gentle and the Silver Beatles. At number 4, Ringo Starr is Richie Snare in 1972. This is Ringo Starr's second entry in this video. His entry this time was due to an uncovered undercover job he did with Harry Nilsson. Harry Nilsson was a sensitive performer, quirky musical film and drinking buddy confidant of the Beatles. People dubbed him the American Beatle. It was John Lennon that produced Nilsson's Pussycats album in 1974 during the infamous Lost Weekend period, and they collaborated on the song Old Dirt Road. Nilsson also covered That Is All by George Harrison in 1976. These are well known in the world of rock. What people don't know is that Ringo Starr played on Nilsson's Spaceman under the name Richie Snare. He also played on 5 tracks on Nilsson's 1972 album Son of Schmilsson. Ringo Starr went on to pay tribute to Nilsson on Harry's song in 2008. Before we reach the final 3 spots, make sure to subscribe and comment down below any secrets that we missed, and don't forget to hit the bell, you don't want to be left out of the loop. Number 3 on the list, George Harrison as Leangelo Misterioso in 1969. This is George Harrison's third entry, and it's coming in as number 3. Perfect. Everybody knew that Eric Clapton and George Harrison were buddies for life. The two men had showered each other with favours. In one of their favours, Clapton contributed immensely to Harrison's While My Guitar Gently Weeps that was released in 1968. Harrison decided to return the favour in 1969 by co-writing Badge for the band's latest album from Clapton, Cream. Another fact about his involvement was that he unintentionally named the song. Harrison said in an interview that he helped Eric write Badge. He continued that each of them had to come up with a song for that Goodbye Cream album, and Eric didn't have his written. Midway, I wrote Bridge, and Eric, who was sitting across, read it upside down and cracked up laughing. "What's Badge?" George Harrison added. George Harrison couldn't use his name because of contractual problems, so he used Leangelo Misterioso. Mysterious indeed. Moving on to number 2, John Lennon as Dr. Winston O'Boogie in 1974. Yes, first entry by the founder of the band, John Lennon. He made a huge entry, and let's look at his undercover story. Elton John and John Lennon were close friends in the mid-1970s, and they collaborated a few times. Elton John contributed to Lennon Whatever Gets You Through the Night, and Lennon would contribute to Elton's rendition of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. He couldn't do it with his full name, so he adopted the legend of a Winston O'Boogie. The facade was destroyed by Elton John when he asked Lennon to come up on stage with him to perform 3 songs. Lennon refused, and they decided to settle it with a side bet which stated that if Whatever Gets You Through the Night tops the charts, Lennon had to keep his promise to join John at a show at Madison Square Garden. As fate would have it, it topped the charts and they both performed 3 songs. That happened to be Lennon's last time on stage. Alright, at the top of the list we have Paul McCartney as Apollo C. Vermouth in 1968. This is the 4th entry by Paul McCartney of Liverpool. It happened in 1968 when the Bonzos, who are popularly known as the Bonzo Dog Band, used the knowledge and efforts of Paul McCartney under the guise of Apollo C. Vermouth. With the band, Paul McCartney produced the Bonzos' most successful single, I'm the Urban Spaceman. The song peaked at number 5 in the UK charts. The song was written by Neil Innes, who won an Ivor Novello Award in 1968 for the song. The song is about drugs and telling the listeners about the false sense of exuberance to being out in space. Since then, he's been working on and off for the band. With that, we've come to the end of the little secrets of the Beatles. Do you know of any other secret collaborations by any of the Beatles? If you do, drop it in the comment section and let's learn from you. Now that you're here, kindly like this video, follow the yellow submarine for more interesting videos and put on post notifications. Thanks!